Bhagavad Gita, the 3rd chapter, 18th verse. Naiva tasya krite nartho na akrite neha kaschana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kaschid artha vyapashrayah. Tasya, of that person here in this world, kritena, by action done, artha, object, na, eva, surely not, akritena, by action not done, kaschana, any, na, any loss is to be added, na, not, cha, and asya, of this person, sarva bhuteshu, of all beings, kaschid, any, artha vyapashrayah, depending for any object, not. So, usually, dependence on God is seen as a practice usually only in Bhakti Yoga. When one has devotion, bhakti to God, to the Supreme Being, and in other disciplines, spiritual disciplines, generally dependence or surrender is not talked of. But here, in this verse, Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna the mode of dependence or surrender which a person who is performing action or a person who is performing karma yoga can practice. Now, when a person knows that the whole thing, whatever action is being done, is a part, an insignificant part, but of course it is a part of the entire cosmic sacrifice which is going on. When a person knows this, when a person does action with this awareness that what I act is nothing but a part of the bigger sacrifice which is going on. And when one does action in the spirit of sacrifice, so that is more important. We have seen in the previous verses how sacrifice is the basis on which this entire creation is going on. Sacrifice is the basis. And this sacrifice is born out of karma, action. And this sacrifice is also born out of Vedas, the realization. And that Veda again is established in sacrifice. Nityam yajñe pratishtitam. So in yajna it is established. What would be the nature of a person who does actions knowing them to be dependent on sacrifice, knowing them to be originating from Vedas? What would be the nature of a person? So, who does actions like that? So, we generally see that actions are done because of the sense of doership. Aham karta, I am the doer. That sense of doership when someone has, then one does actions. Now, if you know that your action is just part of a cosmic sacrifice, then will you be able to have this awareness that you are doing something which is part of the cosmic sacrifice and simultaneously have the idea that you are the doer? It will become impossible. Because if you think that what you are doing is a part of a bigger sacrifice, then automatically your agency, the fact that you are doing something, becomes immaterial, irrelevant. And your part, in the sense of the play of your ego, becomes insignificant. So, That is why one should, whenever we study any text, even whenever we use our time for so-called entertainment, say you are watching a movie, you are listening to a song, there are two ways of doing it. One is with awareness, another one is without awareness. So most people, they listen to a song without awareness. So if you ask them to repeat some words from the lyrics, they don't know. And that is why many people, they sing songs which have not so good or so meaningful lyrics. So if you turn back to them and question them, what is that which you are singing? So they themselves find that those lyrics are meaningless or have very gross meaning. Why does that happen? Because one is not aware. So when you are studying particularly a scriptural text like the Bhagavad Gita, we should ask questions about the verses which we are studying. This chapter started as a chapter which was focusing on karma, on action. And suddenly Sri Krishna went into a discussion on yajna. He said that if you don't give it to the gods and consume yourself, then it is equivalent to theft. All these things. Now, why does Sri Krishna talk about yajna in a chapter which is devoted to karma? The reason is, first of all, as we saw earlier, karma is in a sense the sacrifices or the prescribed duties as prescribed in the Vedas. And so he is talking about Vedic sacrifices or the general cosmic sacrifice which is inbuilt in every moment of our life. And the other and more important reason why Sri Krishna is talking about sacrifice is that we do karma, but for it to become karma yoga, what is it which is necessary? Self-abnegation. Your selfishness should turn into selflessness. Unless that happens, karma will not become karma yoga. If karma yoga has to be practiced, so everyone is, as Sri Krishna says, everyone is doing some action. But that action in itself will not become karma yoga unless you transform it into something which is a sacrifice, unless you transform it into something which is done out of selflessness. Unless you do that, that will not be turned into karma yoga. And so, to give you an idea, to give Arjuna or other people an idea about the sacrificial aspect of karma, Sri Krishna talks about all these sacrifices. And immediately after that he says that a person who is devoted to the self and content with the self has no tasya karyam na vidyate, has no obligatory work, has no duty, That means if you do action in the spirit of self-surrender, if you do action in the spirit of self-surrender to the cosmic principle, or in the case of a person who practices Advaita Vedanta, surrender to one's prarabdha karma. If you do action in that sense, in that spirit, then you will be constantly dependent on your own self, capital S, Atman or Brahman, and you will have no duty. So that person a person who is always thinking and knowing that that person's true nature is not the body and the mind, and above the 5 sheets, pancha kosha, of covering. So that person is well established in the fact that that person's true reality or true personality, true nature is Atman. That person need not do any duty because that person has no duty, because the duty, as Swamiji says, is a concept that binds. Duty is a binding thing, and more so it is a thing which is produced out of bondage. I have to do this for my children. Why? Because they are my children. I have to do this for my spouse. Why? Because it is my spouse. I have to do this for my student because it is my student, and so on and so forth. So this happens because a person thinks that one is not the Atman, or is not aware all the time that the true nature of a person is Atman. Now, when a person is completely established in this fact that I am not different from Brahman or Atman, my true nature is Brahman or Atman, then that for that person everything becomes irrelevant. Everything, in the sense, whatever we see in this apparent universe, becomes irrelevant. And so there comes this verse where it is told that that person has nothing to gain in this world. Tasya iha kritena artha na eva. There is nothing, no artha, object, to be gained by doing something. Kritena, by something which is done. So that person has nothing to gain by doing something. Who has known one's own self, that is Atmani eva cha santushtaha, the previous verse. A person who is content in self alone, that person has nothing to gain from any action. No object means nothing to gain. No, not only object, but also that person has nothing to gain in terms of name and fame, or favor, or some kind of attachment, some kind of bondage. That person has got nothing to gain. Naiva tasya kritena arthaha na akritena kaschana, and has nothing to lose also by not doing something. So that person has nothing to gain by doing something and has nothing to lose by not doing something. Why? Because there is nothing to do. You see, if Atman or Brahman is the only reality, and if it is infinite, if it is beyond time, space and causation, and if there is nothing other than Brahman, then where is the scope of action? Where is the actor and the acted upon and the process of action? All this, all merge in Brahman. There is, all these things are not existing. So a person has nothing to do. Of course, as we see in religion and spirituality, maximum number of people are hypocrites. So if we tell this just like that, that will show that many people are hypocrites. So one has to ensure that that person is established in the knowledge of Brahman or self, and that that person is pure, in the sense has no desires. And if one has no desires, then automatically that person's mind will be controlled, senses will be controlled, and then this becomes relevant, or this becomes obvious, natural, that that person has nothing to do. If a person has no desires, what will that person do? There is nothing to do. And that person knows that this whole universe is unreal. There is nothing to do. Whatever is happening because of the cosmic sacrifice, or so it should be sacrifice. It should not be something which is selfish. Because if a person is established in the idea that I am Atman or Brahman, that person cannot do anything which goes against that idea, which emphasizes the idea that one is the body, one is the mind. That kind of an action cannot be done by a person who has realized that I am Brahman. So if that person has realized this, then automatically there is nothing for that person to do, nothing to gain by doing any action, nothing to lose by not doing any action. Nacha asya sarva bhuteshu kaschid artha vyapashraya, and has no transaction, has no depending artha vyapashrayah, dependence on an object. So no dependence on an object. Sarva bhuteshu. So among all beings, this person becomes a person, unique person. What kind of a unique person? Who is not dependent on any object. Who is always free from any dependence. So what is the cause of suffering? Cause of suffering is dependence. Cause of suffering is dependent. You are happy. So a child is always happy. But the child is educated. Systematically we corrupt the mind of a child. So the child is happy. We ask the child, why are you happy? Why are you happy? You should not be happy. So if a child is smiling like that, why are you smiling? You should not smile. This is not polite behavior. Civil behavior requires that you be morose. You be very serious. Unless there is something. Unless somebody comes and cracks a joke, don't smile. So the child is smiling and you say, don't smile. And then the child is laughing. You say, why are you giggling and laughing? Without any reason. Say, without any reason you should not giggle or laugh. If you giggle or laugh without any reason, we will put you into the loony bin. We will admit you into a lunatic asylum. So why are you? So we systematically, we train the child saying that you should laugh or you should be happy only if something happens or somebody comes to you or if you get something. So we inculcate the idea of dependence into the infant. We tell that infant that yes, you are dependent on something to get happiness. The child was not. Child naturally is happy. The child is now educated that no, you cannot be happy of your own. You have to be dependent. And then you spend an entire lifetime like that. When you are 78, you come to some Ramakrishna mission, some center, and some monk, some Swami says, oh, you can be dependent without, you can be happy without dependent on anything, without being dependent, but your entire lifetime has gone. And so your training of being happy only when you get something cannot be changed now. At least it cannot be changed easily. So that is what. So here what is told? That there is no artha vyapashraya. There is no dependence on a particular object. It could be object, it could be person, anything external. So there is no necessity. So that person is happy. Why are you happy? I am happy. That is my nature. Why are you smiling? I am smiling. That is my nature. So that is not what generally people say. I am happy because I got a promotion. I am happy because my wife left me. Or something like that. So happiness comes because of some external event or external happening. And so whenever you depend on something else, when that something else is removed, your happiness goes away. But this is not, in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad we see that a husband is not happy because of the wife. Husband is happy for one's own self. And husband loves the wife for one's own self. Wife loves the husband for one's own self. That means any kind of happiness, satisfaction or love, all these things are not external. Their center, their source is internal. Unless you are happy inside, you cannot be made happy. No matter how much or how many objects are given to you. So that is why we see that satisfaction is a subjective term. People get so many things and yet they are dissatisfied. People have very less and yet they are satisfied. So it is not something which comes out of external objects. A person may be dissatisfied even if owning a car costing more than 5 crores. And a person may be satisfied if just is able to walk. I don't need a car. I am able to walk, that is sufficient for me. I don't need a bicycle, I don't need a motorcycle. So the happiness or the level of satisfaction or contentment which is brought to a person is not dependent on the external object. If that is so, then logically it makes sense that you should never depend on an external object. If that is the case, because we do see a person is staying in a 7-star hotel and yet is very much annoyed that the room service person came, say, 2 minutes late. Is it not? And a person is living in a hut and very happy that there is some roof which will prevent rain from coming into the room. So there are two kinds of people. And if we analyze, then we should never be dependent on any particular object. And that is what is being told here. And so what will happen if you know the true reality? Then you have nothing to do. Because by doing anything, you are not going to gain anything. Because you have already whatever you can have. You are Atman, you are Brahman. You are not an ordinary body-mind complex. You are not an ordinary body. You are Atman, Brahman. You can do whatever you want. Behind this utterance, which is used as a self-improvement tool by many people, of Swamiji, that you can do whatever you want, is not just a self-improvement or personality development gimmick. It is the truth based on the truth that you are Atman. And if you are Atman, you are Brahman, you are all-powerful, you are omniscient, you are omnipotent, you are omnipresent. So, Swamiji says that you can do everything. And so, using the same logic, if you are present everywhere, if you are all-knowing, omniscient, and if you are all-powerful, then you don't need to do anything. Because there is nothing to do really, which is going to give you something which you already don't have. There is nothing to know which you already don't know. There is nowhere to go where you are already not there. So Guru Nanak, we all know this famous incident, that was lying down somewhere, and a person came and he said, not a friend, a person came and said that your feet is pointing to Makkah. So the Kaaba in Mecca. So you please turn your feet. So he said, okay, turn my feet. And he was lying and this fellow turned his feet, and wherever he turned, he saw Makkah. So that means God is everywhere. And if God is everywhere, there is nowhere to go because you are not different from God. And so there is nothing to do. There is nothing to gain. There is nothing to lose. And that is what is being told in this. So because you have nothing to gain, you have nothing to lose. So that is why you need not depend on any object. And so a person who is Atmani eva tushtaha, a person who is tripta or tushta, santushta, satisfied with Atman alone, does not have anything to do, no obligatory duty, and also does not lose anything by not doing anything, does not gain anything by doing anything, and is not dependent on anything. Tasmad asaktaha satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hi acharan karma parama apnoti purushaha. In the 19th verse, Sri Krishna is saying, Tasmad asaktaha satatam. Therefore, you do work asaktaha, without attachment. Tasmad, therefore, asaktaha, without attachment, satatam, always, karyam, that means that which is to be done, that which is your duty, karma, action, samachara, perform. He, because asaktaha, without attachment, karma, action, acharan, performing, purushaha, person, param, highest, apnoti. So you have to perform. Therefore, So the idea is therefore means what? Because there is nothing to be lost, nothing to be gained, there is no object on which you are dependent, because this is the true reality, this is the actual state of things. And so, asakta, without attachment, always do whatever has to be done. Don't run away from action, because this action is also part of a big cosmic cycle which is going on. But do whatever you have to do without attachment. Why? Because if a person does actions without attachment, that person param apnoti, that person attains to the supreme knowledge, or the supreme, attains to the highest. That means that person attains God or self-realization. That person knows that I am non-different from Brahman. Aham Brahma Asmi. I am Brahman. That person attains that. How does that person attain that? By performing action without attachment. By a non-attached approach to action. So, what will happen if you lose money? Nothing will happen. What will happen if you gain money? Nothing will happen. Then why are you doing this business? Because I have to do this business. That's all. So I am not doing this business to get money. I am not doing this business to avoid losses. Whatever will come in the course of things will come, and I am unattached. I am not having any kind of attachment towards this. So if you are unattached, what will you not have? Suffering. If you are unattached, you will not have stress also. Stress comes because of attachment. Frustration comes because of expectation. So if there is no expectation, there is no attachment, there is no frustration, and there is no stress. So people are stressed and strained because there was something they wanted to attain and they couldn't. So they are strained. But if you are free, what is the one thing which people are afraid of the most is infamy, bad name. People say that yes, everything is okay, but losing honor is not okay. And that is why there is this practice of harakiri. So when a Japanese samurai is unable to fight properly, or when a Japanese samurai, a warrior, is unable to win a war or a fight, kills oneself, and that is called harakiri. That's a suicide. Why? Because it is better to die than to live in dishonor. So something which a person cannot, or a human being, and of course this is applicable to human beings, a human being is unable to live with is dishonor. And if a person is okay with that, if a person has no problem living a life of dishonor means a life where a person's name is tarnished, a person's respect is not given, then there can be only two reasons. One is that that person has no other go, so out of compulsion, that person is living like that, which is the majority of the case. But very few people can live such a life because they have realized the ultimate truth. They have realized the fact that their true nature is not at this level, it is much beyond this level. So when can a person live like that? Only when a person is unattached. So an unattached person is not even attached to. So when we talk about unattachment, how will you test or how will you check whether you have achieved unattachment? So this is the method to check. Anything which causes you dishonor, are you perturbed or disturbed by that? If you are, that means you are attached. And if you are not because of compulsion, but if you are disturbed because of compulsion, you will not be able to react externally, but internally you will be reacting. So if you don't have any kind of reaction externally or internally, even when somebody hurts your pride, even when somebody disrespects you, causes you dishonor, then you can understand that yes, you are truly unattached. And that is the kind of unattachment Sri Krishna is talking here. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.